Hey everyone, I'm Connor, and in today's video I'm going to preview and predict the Faze Jarvis vs. Michael Lee boxing match, which is set to take place on the main card of the Social Gloves YouTuber vs. TikToker event on June 12th. This is unlike any video I've ever done. I've only interviewed pro MMA fighters on this channel. I want to get a little bit out of my comfort zone because this whole influencer boxing era is super intriguing to me. It's unlike anything we've seen to this extent. And the reason I picked this fight in particular, I feel like both guys aren't getting the attention that some of the other fights are getting on this card. And both guys are so new to the sport that I just thought it'd be kind of fun video to break them down. So with that being said, there wasn't a ton of footage on these guys to find. It was kind of difficult to find some of the footage, but I am pretty happy with what I was able to collect. And I think I have a really confident answer for you guys because of what I was able to find. But I don't want to leave you guys hanging for very long, so we're going to go right into who I think is going to win. Then we're going to break down Jarvis. Then we're going to break down Michael Lee. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to get to this outcome. So the winner, I think, of the Faze Jarvis versus Michael Lee boxing match is going to be Faze Jarvis. When we talk about this fight as a whole, we have to talk about the Inexperience. They have a combined 3.5 months of training. That's not each. That's 3.5 months combined. In a recent interview with Faze, Jarvis pretty much said that he's been training for about 2 months. And in a recent video for Michael Lee with his trainer, they pretty much said they've been training for about a month and a half. So that should tell us everything we need to know about this fight. It's going to be very raw. There's going to be mistakes. They're both very new to the sport. And not even just that. Not only are they in a new sport, but they're going to be fighting in the Hard Rock Stadium where the Miami Dolphins play. It's going to be insane. It's a huge stage for both these guys, and they're young in their lives too. Faze Jarvis is only 19 and Michael Lee is 21. So that's a big task to ask, two young guys to kind of step up and learn this sport and do that. So I think we need to know that when we're kind of talking about both these guys and looking at their footage. So starting with Jarvis, from what I could find online, they have him listed at 5 feet 8 inches. I saw some places that had him at 5 feet 5 inches, but he does seem like to be a little taller than that. And if he is 5 feet 8 inches, he will be the same height as Michael Lee. So there they go. That's kind of even there. One thing that I think is great for Jarvis is, he is new to this, but he is training at Mayweather Boxing Gym in Las Vegas. I think that's a great place for him to be. Obviously, there's world-class training there, world-class, partners, boxers. I think he's going to do really well there too, especially because he hasn't been doing this that long. So he's not going to take on all these bad habits when he's first starting. I'm sure these guys are watching him very carefully, and he's getting a lot of attention there. So I think that's a great start. But when you look at his clips too, and you look at, basically in this clip, what we're going to look at is he's hitting mitts, but at first he's actually hitting a speed bag and then sparring towards the end. But even on the bag here, you can see that he's got really good control. He's got good control of the bag. I think that's definitely a positive. One negative I would say is he's not really extending his arms all that much. He seems to have some decent speed, but there's only so much you can tell by the bag. If you look at him kind of, with his coach and he's kind of, hitting the mitts, they're a little more, I think he's a little more fluent there. He seems a little more comfortable kind of making his way around the ring. He's getting full extensions too on most of the strikes there. One thing I like too from him is that he's got his hands up. He returns his hands in front of his face. It looks like he's got decent feeling for defense. He's got a solid base, and I think that's very important. One thing I do notice is his footwork's not really there. His feet are kind of dragging. He's not having tons of power, and I think that's mostly because he's not getting that power from his hips, and he's not releasing that power from using his hips and his footwork to kind of go into the punch. He's not really putting a lot behind it. So I think his power is a little lacking there because of that little fundamental thing there. But I think he will improve with that as time goes on. I don't know if it'll be by the time the fight starts, but I think that's something to look at. Now going into the sparring, he is sparring here with members of the because obviously he's a YouTube gamer, so he's with his the Faze clan, which is his YouTube gaming clan. He's with a friend and his brother, and these are the two people you're going to see him sparring here. But so not a lot of experience there, I want to make that clear. But you can see Jarvis, I think he does some things well. Again, he looks very fluent here. He looks very comfortable. He's flowing. He seems comfortable. I think he does a good job of kind of working that jab. He sets up a lot of his punches. You'll see. Sometimes maybe he doesn't get like the full extension, but I think for the most part he does good. Same thing with his hands. He has his hands up for the most part. Sometimes he'll drop them, but I think for the most part he's pretty sound defensively, not too bad. And also he sticks and moves a lot. A lot of feints. He's constantly moving his head. I really like the way he's moving, especially for a guy who just started. I think he's really got a solid base, and I can't stress that enough. I think he's got a solid base. One thing that I think is a real positive for him is this left hand. He's got this left hook that he just seems to go to a lot. You see him land it right here against his friend. He stings his friend with that. You can tell the friend that's hurting him a little bit. So, I think that's something that he can really do well with, too, especially against a kid like Lee. I think that's a lot of these kids, I feel like, that are doing this whole, influencer boxing. A lot of them are just going for the head, and they're trying to get these big knockouts. Jarvis seems to be mixing up. He goes for the body, too. So I think that's going to be a big advantage for him. So just based off these clips, too, I think what his positives are is that, one, he's got decent fundamentals. I think he's got good defense. I like that he feints a lot. You don't really know exactly where he's going to be. He seems to move around, the ring pretty well. He does get lazy at times. I would say that would be a negative, but I feel like that's going to be a recurring thing with a lot of these, YouTuber, TikToker boxers because they are so new to the sport too. It doesn't look like he has a crazy amount of power because, again, he's not really like excelling like with his hips and accelerating with his hips and his footwork. He's not using that to his advantage to really generate more power. So I think that's a little bit of the negatives too for Jarvis. But besides that, there's not all that much. I mean, like I said, it's kind of hard to tell because there is such limited footage. But that's kind of my breakdown of Jarvis, where I think he's going to be successful. Where I think he might not be successful is if this fight does become sloppy, which I think there is a very good chance it could be because both these guys are so new to this sport. And if they're in the Hard Rock, stadium in Miami and the pressure gets to them, they might just start wailing on each other, trying to get these big knockouts, looking for that. In every interview Jarvis does, he talks about how he wants to get this knockout. And I think if he's looking for that too much, he's going to find himself in a little bit of trouble. And, him and Lee might just, make it real sloppy. It's not going to be great for the fans. And they're just going to be kind of like wailing on each other, which I think could happen. But I think if Jarvis is able to stay focused and stick to those fundamentals, I think he's obviously, much further technically at this stage than Lee is. Maybe things can change too. You can make some, leaps and bounds in the sport. But for the most part, I think Jarvis is probably going to be the more experienced guy. But now let's move over to Michael Lee. He's 21 years old, so he's a little older than Jarvis. He's that same height as we said. I think he actually weighs a little less than Jarvis, though. He's a pretty skinny kid. I mean, Jarvis is too, but he actually has been training with Ricky Quiles. So he is training with a pro boxer. He's not, working with, the Mayweather team like Jarvis is, but Lee is working with a former pro boxer. I think it's a great move by both guys that they are going to, guys with experience. I think that's awesome. So, yeah, he is getting some work in there. Now, when you look at Lee's footage, there's really less than we could even look at with Jarvis. I think Jarvis had quite a bit more than Lee did. In Lee's clips, we're going to see a lot of speed bag and mitts. That's pretty much all we're kind of looking at. So, when we look at the speed bag, like right now, you can tell he's not extending his punches. I feel like his speed is actually a lot slower than what we saw from Jarvis. And again, I think it's hard to tell on the speed bag, but he's got some power, but it doesn't look like it's going to be anything overwhelming. So that's really all I can take from that. If you do see him kind of doing mitts with his coach, it's the same thing. I guess he's extending his punches a little more, but everything's very like stationary. With Jarvis, everything seemed to flow a little more. Every time the coach is calling for something, and both guys did this, but they're both, throwing the strikes as soon as that happens. But, a lot of guys sometimes, when the coach shows up, doesn't mean you have to hit that mitt. You can be a little more, fluent, mimic the fight. Like, you're not going to throw punches the entire fight. You got to look for your spot. So when you feel like it's the right time to kind of strike or throw out that jab or the cross to the hook or whatever it may be. So with these guys, I feel like, with Lee, it almost looks more like a robot. Like he's kind of just like doing whatever his coach is telling him. He's very stationary. He doesn't look like his feet are like moving at all. You can't really see a lot of his footwork in this like you could with Jarvis, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like he's like moving very well. It doesn't look like he's very like comfortable in there. It seems like he's really like thinking a lot. And you did see that with Jarvis too. He was thinking a lot too, but it just looks like Lee's like not that comfortable in here. He's not that fluent. If I were to look at some positives, I think much like Jarvis, he is pretty, defensively sound. He does seem to, looks like he returns his hands. He does seem to keep him up, pretty high though at times. And with Jarvis's left hook to body, that could possibly be a problem for Lee. But if I was to pick a positive of Lee, there's not too much positive. But again, he's so new. I totally get it. But again, I think it's just those hands. He keeps those hands up. That's a great start. So when we're talking about Lee and his keys to success, it's kind of like what I had alluded to before. I think he just needs to make this sloppy. Take Jarvis out of, the technical aspect, because I think he is a more technical fighter. If he can get Jarvis to forget about those fundamentals and just make it sloppy, kind of swarm Jarvis, I think, it can go like this, and it could be like almost like a level playing field for Lee. Again, it's not gonna be great for fans. It's gonna look like what it probably is. Two guys who have never fought before. I think if Lee can make it, that kind of fight, I think that's going to be in his favor, but because it just doesn't seem like his level's at the same. There's also a clip I saw on Instagram where, Lee kind of, I think it was like a TikTok actually, but he posted on his Instagram too, it was like a body transformation, and he actually looked kind of like a skinny fat at the beginning of this, where, he looks skinny, but he actually had like a little bit of like a belly, not like a lot of muscle tone. And then, he did a little like flash forward, and all of a sudden, his chest was a little bigger. His waist looked like he was like a little thinner, but for the most part, he looked like bigger. And the only thing I worry about that is if he is focusing so much on strength, and he's putting on like a lot of muscle. Just from my experience and seeing a lot of guys going through training camp and being around that in the gym, most guys are losing weight. Most guys are getting shredded during that camp because they're starting to diet, they're starting to get fight ready, and they're actually not getting so much like smaller, but they are, but they're just getting like more toned and like that kind of thing. They're getting shredded. I think that's the best way to explain it. Where with Lee, if he's putting a lot of focus on, lifting weights and gaining like mass and everything like that, I don't know how that's going to work as far as like his cardio too. Hopefully he's working on cardio, because if he is, getting bigger and he's not really focusing on that cardio, I think he's going to have a pretty tough time in there. Especially if he's spending so much time, in the gym as far as like, lifting weights and things like that, and not putting as much time into the boxing, that's going to be another problem too, because like I said, I think Jarvis is really trying to embrace the techniques. He's really trying to learn. I think you can see that in his training, where with Lee, I don't get that feeling. I feel like with Lee, it's more like, hey, I'm doing this because I kind of have to, and I'm going to get in good shape and get big and strong and things like that. And he might not be going about it, the right way. So we broke down Jarvis, we broke down Lee. I already told you who I think is going to win, Jarvis, but let me tell you how I think he's going to win. Now, I think because both these guys are super inexperienced, like I said, 3.5 months combined, they're going to be super slow to start. I think both guys are going to be afraid of getting knocked out. Now, let me just start with this. I don't think anybody is really going to get knocked out on this card. I just don't see it happening. I don't think these guys have like tons of power. I just don't see these like clean knockouts. I just don't think the skill's there. But I think they're going to be afraid that could happen in front of all these people. These guys are entertainers before they are, boxers. So, I think they have this habit of pleasing everybody, and that could be into this, and they're going to be scared to be embarrassed in front of everybody, which who wouldn't be, right? Especially when you're that young, 19 and 21 years old. But I think if anybody's going to initiate or finally find the rhythm first and kind of get it going, I think it's going to be Jarvis. And I think what another key to success for him is going to be is once he does start finding his range and gets more comfortable, just to keep that going. And I think once he does that, I think we're going to really see a shift where he starts going up and Lee starts, questioning maybe why he's in there, things like that. I know Jarvis has been predicting that knockout. I don't see like a clean knockout here, but I don't see this going the full distance. I'm guessing a TKO stop. I'm pretty confident with that, actually. I think Lee's just going to get to a point where he's just, he's taking those body shots. He's getting hit with, because Jarvis has a solid right hand too. And he's getting hit with that right hand and the left. And I think it's just going to be too much for Lee. He's just going to decide to either go down or say, hey, I'm done. Or, maybe even his corner like throws in the towel if he's really getting like peppered out there. But for the most part, that's what I see happening. I see Jarvis kind of dominating this fight, keeping control. I think he has to stick to his fundamentals, which I think he'll do. I think he's going to handle the moment all right. And and I think Lee's going to end up, it's going to be too much for him. I think he maybe bit off a little more than he could chew. Remember, guys, this is just my opinion. Nothing is concrete here. These are all just, like I said, it's very limited footage, so I'm trying to do the best with what I got. And it's just fun. It's all supposed to be fun. So let me know in the comments below if you guys agree with me or if you disagree with me. Whether it's positive, negative feedback, I want to hear, guys. I love, I love interacting with everybody. I think it'll be like a lot of fun. So like I said, even if it's negative comment, bring it on. It's totally fine. It's definitely accepted here. And yeah, guys, let's make it fun. I'm excited. If you guys want me to do more content like this, let me know in the comments below. What TikTok or YouTuber fights would you like me to predict? I can even do, MMA is obviously like my wheelhouse. I could do more MMA stuff. Boxing, I've definitely been getting more into boxing too. So if you want to break down some boxing matches too, I'd be happy to do that. I'm learning as well, so it's a lot of fun. And one last thing, guys, just don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. And we'll see you next time.